All right. Today we're going to talk about function calling within OpenAI's APIs. So specifically, we're going to talk about the ability to structure data as part of an output. So normally when you go to OpenAI's APIs, you put in a response or you put in a prompt, you get a response back in text. And then historically, there was ways to provide a lot of instructions in the prompt in terms of structuring, and maybe you can get some JSON structure, but it's not always consistent and somewhat challenging to do. Enter in OpenAI launched this function calling capabilities a couple months ago. I think it's great for being able to structure data. So let's go through an example of a scenario where you may want to structure data coming back. I think normally it's used to basically give inputs for other functions to be called, hence the name function calling. But we're going to use it for the structuring of data into JSON format. So let's give an example. So all right, normally I'll go to GPT, ChatGPT, or your API, and you may want to do something like, hey, I want to, extract keywords from a review. The review I'm going to use is for Restaurant de Manga. Let's go ahead and copy this review and go ahead and put that in here. And so basically, you'll see ChatGPT would go forward and provide some information around this. It's a lot of text, kind of a list. There's a lot of keywords in here. But this really, I can't do anything with it within the app. Like, what if I wanted to save these keywords into my database? What if I wanted to do something different with the neutral versus negative versus the positive ones? And so that's where the structuring in JSON enables you to do a lot more with the data that comes back from this versus just the text that would normally come back. So really what we want to get to is something like this. We want to get to a list of keywords with the keyword and the sentiment as a JSON object in an array or a list of keywords. Like, this would be ideal. I could do a lot with this. I could save this. I could do display information based on that. I can do a lot more. And so today's example is just going to basically go through how to do this. We're going to use the API for OpenAI, and we're going to do it within Bubble. Before I get into that, I want to kind of walk through how this is going to get structured. And so basically, if you look at the API reference, within OpenAI, you have like this function call basically you have a list of functions that you have to list out. It has a name, description, parameters. Parameters is where the magic is, like where you start to put in this structure of like that you want to get this back. This is the structure I want to get back. And I'm going to walk through what that is. I created a more visual representation of what that is in a Figma diagram. It's still kind of busy. I didn't know a better way to make this simple. It is just a lot of nested information. But basically how this works is this is kind of the body of the function of the basic API call. And so you have the model, name GPT. We're going to use 3.5 Turbo. Function call here. I'll explain what this is as we go through it. But basically it's telling it to always use this function. In response, you have the normal messages array, which is system, your helpful assistant, the user, whatever your prompt would be in the content area here. And this is where the part where you're listing out the function. So in here, we're just having one function, which is save keywords. It has the name, save keywords. We have description of how it is to be used. And then we have the parameters. Always, it must be an object. And so if you go to the reference, you see parameters, object, required. After object into the properties is where you can start to customize stuff. So in here we have parameters, type, object, and then the properties is where I get to then determine what the structure is. What are the properties of this function? What is the information I expect to just put into this format? First, I put in keywords, which is a type array. I want a keywords array. And then for each item, I'm going to create an object. It's a type object. And that object has two properties. Keyword, which is a string, and then sentiment, which is, in this instance, an enum between positive, negative, and neutral. And so basically everything Everything in green is an array in this. Everything in purple is a JSON object. Just kind of like show you how this is going. So we only have one function, even though, but it's still an array. That's how the format is asked for the OpenAI body call. And then here, when you're doing this, it's also an array because you're having a list of items here. But everything else is there. So let's go ahead and get this built into Bubble, into the API connector, and we can go through this. I'll also share the text for this body structure so that you can do it yourself versus having to look through and make sure you're copying exactly as is. But we're starting off with a fresh Bubble page here and nothing in it. We're going to go ahead and start by adding our favorite plugin, the API connector plugin. And after that, we're going to go ahead and start creating some API. So we're just going to say, this is the OpenAI API. We are going to do a create keywords. We're going to make that an action because we're going to call it as part of a workflow later on. It is a post. If you go to the API reference, this is the URL that we're going to use, the chat completions URL. I will go here, put that in, and then we need to add normal headers. There are two. It's going to be content type, and that is application JSON. And then the next one is the authorization. And that is a bearer token. And then if I go to my OpenAI keys, I created a new one here. Basically, here, I'll just go ahead and delete this one and then create a new one for the video. And we copy that over and we put it here after the bearer with a space between bearer and the key. Cool. And now this is where I'm going to copy the body that I was showing you in that diagram. So it's a little bit long, but it follows that same format as I was showing you. And so you have the model, the function call, the messages array, and then you have the functions array, which is the say keywords, name, description, parameters, type object, and then you have the properties, which is where we're customizing with keywords array, so forth, to get to this magic format. We've got to do some setup here. Basically, I now need to put in the prompt. We still need a prompt here. I found that despite there being some description of what needs to happen in the functions, you still have to give the instructions inside the prompt. You have to give the instructions of, hey, extract the keywords, put in the sentiment, whatever you want to do. All the instructions still need to be in the prompt. The function is just a way to format the results of that instruction. And so it's still important to put in all that information. So we're going to go ahead and use the same, just use the same thing we had here. I am going to go forth. I'm just going to escape all the special characters because that's what we need. So I just go to, I think I type in JSON escape in Google, and this is the first thing that pops up. But just put in that, so we have the prompt, and then we have the review here. Escape the JSON, and then I get all this so that we get all the special characters out so that the model likes it. We're going to put that here, so we have quotation marks. Notice I don't put the quotation marks in around it. I put it in here, and then we put that at the end. We uncheck private, and then we're going to go ahead and initialize the call. Takes a little bit, a couple seconds, and we'll get this back from OpenAI. Hopefully, quickly. All right, we got it back. All right, so we got this back, and now you can see that there's no data in the message content that we got back because instead it responded back with a function call, and it's save keywords, and then it has call arguments. I thought we were going to get back JSON, right? Like, is that the whole point of this? No. It responds back with a text stringified return or response of the JSON format. So if you look at the raw data, you'll see, all right, I got the function call, I got a name, save keywords, I got the arguments, but the arguments are all of this in a just a text box or text string. So now I need to do something else. I need to get this into JSON format so I can actually use it. So first, we're going to go ahead and save this because we need this, which is great. It's working. But now we need to do something else to then like basically convert that into real JSON that we can actually use to do what the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here, which is use this information to save in the database, to do visual representations. So what we're going to do is a little trick that I found out, I think from either Eli or Nigel on Twitter. These, the Bubble OGs that were doing all this stuff back in the day, and they had a quick hint or trick to be able to do this, which is basically you need to have let's start as if it wasn't set up yet. So basically, you need to go to Settings API, and you need to enable your workflow API and backend workflows. So you need to click that, and then you're going to get this, which is great. It also enables you to have workflows. We're going to delete that, start again, and it enables you to have backend workflows. And basically, all we're going to do is we're going to pass that text string into a backend workflow that's going to then return it back to us. And then when it returns it back to us, it puts it into true JSON that we can actually use. So it's a really simple backend workflow. Very easy. We're just going to create a new one here. So new API workflow. We're going to say JSON keywords. Cool. We're going to expose it as a public API workflow because we need to access it. It's going to be a post. It's going to have one parameter, which is text to convert. And it's just going to be text. And then that's it. And then we have one thing, which is going to be type in return data from API. And we're going to do content type plain text. And we are going to then basically return whatever we passed into it. And that's it. It's very simple. All we're doing is putting data into this backend workflow and putting the same data back out. But as it goes out, it's going to recognize it as JSON format instead of that text string that we were showing before. So now we need to call that API, which is you go back to your API connector. You go ahead and create another API, and we'll just call it Bubble. We'll make this JSON keywords, and then we also want it to be an action, and we also need it to be a post because that's what we called it here. It's a post. Cool. And now we need the URL, and the URL is back here. URL workflow API root. So take this, copy it, put it here, and then to call the one that we need, we do / and then what do we call it? We called it JSON underscore keywords. So we're going to so it's workflow JSON underscore keywords. Cool. And then we need two headers. Kind of similar to most APIs, you have the content type, and that's going to be application JSON, and then you want authorization, and it is a bearer space. And what's the token? If we go back to settings, we need to generate a new API token. If I do that, it's going to create one. I found that when it says it's copied, it's not really copied. So cool, copied. And we are going to go back here again, the space after bearer, put that in. Great. Now the JSON body we need is just basically going to be that one text to convert. that was the one parameter that we had. And we're going to put that in there. And then we need to put something in here. Uncheck private here. And then we need to put something in. And I found the best way is just go back to what we had done here and reinitialize this to get that raw text again that we got back. So we need that same, we basically we're going to make this have that same format so that like we're going to kind of save the format of, you know, keywords, keyword objects, and sentiment there. So if I go here, I'm going to go and look at show raw data. I'm just going to copy this whole thing, the arguments from quotation mark to quotation mark. I can save it or cancel it. It's already initialized. And if I just put that in here, you will now initialize this. All right, expired token. Let's go back to our token. Maybe it did exactly what I was saying, is it didn't copy it properly. Let me recopy that and go to plugin. All right. Interesting. All right, let's go ahead and got an extra some extra spaces in there. That's why. That'll happen. Make sure you don't do that. And then once you get it all set up, great. It now has the JSON format of JSON keywords with the keyword list, with each one having a keyword and a sentiment, which is amazing. We go back, you can see these are all the beautiful responses from here, which is exactly the format that we wanted, which is amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now we just got to build out something to demonstrate how this all works. So I'm just going to quickly go to index. I'm going to create, let's create some groups. I'm going to create a group here. We're just going to do like input section. Let's make this a column with a max width of 576. Undo that. Cool. Let's do some padding, make it look kind of nice. I don't know why I'm doing that. It doesn't really matter. But we have, all right, multi-line input. Great. Cool. We're going to make this the review input, and we are going to make it go the whole way. Great. And then we're going to put a button underneath it. That is also going to go the whole way. Cool. And we're going to call it create. Let's just type it here. Create keywords. Cool. Keywords. All right. So now we can do some workflow action here. Let's go ahead and to this button, add a workflow. Step one. What is step one? Step one is going to be doing the OpenAI create keywords. All right, so we need to do the beautiful arbitrary text, and we're going to put in that same prompt here, and then the text is going to be dynamic, which is going to be the multi-line input review input value, which is great. All right, so we're going to do that, and then we need to do formatted as JSON safe so that it does the escaping for anything that's input into here, escaping out the special character so it properly goes through the API. It also then puts the quotation marks at the end of each side of the side. So we do that. That's great. Step one complete. Now we know that we're just going to get some some text back, and now we need to convert it into JSON. So now we're going to do bubble JSON keywords, and yeah, that's that messy thing there. And so we're going to say take result of step one's choices, first items, function call arguments. That's the stuff that has that big text. And then we're going to do the also formatted JSON safe. Make sure it all goes through properly, which is great. So now I need to do something with that. So like I said, we could either save this in the database or we can display it. I'm going to just display it below. I can run this now. I think it should run. It won't really do anything other than not error out, which will be a great thing. So let's go ahead and make sure it doesn't error out before we go any further. So if I do that, and I just say create keywords, it's going to run those two functions back to back with OpenAI, create the keywords, and then create the JSON structure of it. It should all work. Great, it worked, no errors, didn't do anything with it. Now we got to do the part where we're going to display it. So let's just go ahead and display it below. So I'm going to again, it doesn't really need to be done, but we're just going to make some row gap here so this looks all right. And I'm going to put in another group right below this. And we're going to say this is group keyword response. Cool. And column always. Well, not always, but it's the best default originally to go with. All right. We're also going to make this max 576. And we're going to go ahead and put that in, and then we're going to make a repeating group. But first, before I do that, I'm going to make this a type of content, and we're going to go into, this is a JSON keyword. So this is like basically that, and the data source I'm going to leave blank. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a repeating group underneath this, and this is going to be JSON keyword, and the data source is going to be parent groups JSON keyword. Actually, we're going to do JSON keyword parent groups JSON keyword. No. Keywords. No. Why does this not work? I think this is it. All right. JSON keywords. It's confusing when you use the same word kind of back to back. Keywords, keyword, but so maybe don't do that, but there we go. All right. So the type of content are keywords, keyword, because we have a list of keywords, and it's parent groups, JSON keywords, keywords. Again, maybe give some better names to what you do here so it's not confusing. Learn from me. Don't do what I do. Always in this instance. So cool. And let's make these columns as well. Let's put a group in there, and that group is just going to be, we're going to call it keyword chip. And that is also going to be a column. It's going to have a top of 4488. And we're going to put some, and that is also going to be a keyword, and that's going to be current sales keyword. Yeah, that's it. And then we're going to have some text in there, and that text is going to be get keyword. Cool. Now it's even confusing. JSON keywords, keyword. Again, naming not very well done here, but you get kind of the hierarchy here. the layout here is not going to be fixed width. It is going to be fit width to content. It is not going to have a min height. And this is also going to have no min width and fit width to content and no min height. And that is great. And then if I go to this, we're going to do no min height, no set rows, and we are going to wrap horizontally. So basically it should kind of like look like tags in the end. So that's cool. Now I want to go to, so that now we have the text there, and let's go ahead and preview that, like where we're at right now. Might as well. Again, this is not meant to be the prettiest thing, but it is to demonstrate what to do here. So now if I do that, you should see a list of keywords, but I'm not. What did I do wrong? I haven't said it yet. That's all right. We're having some challenges today. So we got to go to the edit the workflow because we haven't done anything because it's all blank now. So now we need to do this last part, which is display data in a group pop-up, or I can just go directly to the repeating group. I'm just going to do to the group pop-up. The element I'm going to do is keyword group keyword response, and the data that I want to respond is result of bubble keywords. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So the result of step 2, bubble keywords. So now when I go through and run that again, at the end, it's going to then send that data that I've gotten back from the OpenAI and this process to make it into JSON. It's now going to display it or send the data to that group, and that group is then going to pull and then populate from there. So now if we do it again, take the review, put it in here, go through, it will now send that data into the group. I could also send or display the data directly into the repeating group if I want. Either way works, but this is how this one works. And so now you can see we got a list of all the keywords, but now this is the beauty of what I wanted to show you, is that instead of just being the keyword list, like you can do some interesting things. Like say I want to change the background color. So when current cells that sentiment is positive, except spelled correctly, because that will be important, we want to change the background style to flat color and background color to, let's just make it this green. Cool. And let's define another condition. Let's copy, paste. Let's make this, instead of positive, negative. And then we're going to do the same thing. Background, oops, not there. Background style, flat, background color. And we're going to make that. And then we are going to do one more. Paste, and we're going to do neutral, and then background style, flat, background color is going to be yellow. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is now I can do something with the information that's now being displayed here. I can now go back in here and we'll refresh this. While that's refreshing, I'll recopy this. We'll put that in here and then now create it. And now we should get a list of keywords, also color-coded, based on the keyword, the sentiment there. Obviously, you can go back in here I'm going to do it because I care. So we want to have some gap spacing here um, in between everything. And then I also want this to have some rounded corners so it looks nice. And if I then go back in here and refresh, we will then quickly see that show up. So now we get this list of keywords formatted based on the color of whether the sentiment was negative, positive, or neutral. Which I think is great. And I think this is what really makes you enable you to really use the responses that you get from OpenAI in a structured way. So then be able to do things. I can now save this as a list to my database. I can do other things with this information because now I have it in a format that I can actually use. It's an array. It's a list of items. It's with information on that. And so the possibilities are here really flexible and really great. So hopefully you get to leverage some of this in whatever you're building. Good luck. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thanks.